Hello, everyone. Welcome to Techie. Today, we're going to demystify Layer 6 of the OSI model, the presentation layer. We'll start by meeting the network's translator, then break down its three core jobs, look at the protocols doing the work, get a reality check with TCP/IP, and finally, cover why this layer is still so important. All right, let's jump right in. What exactly is the deal with this network translator? Okay, so the presentation layer, or Layer 6, is basically the universal translator for everything we do online. It takes the data from whatever app you're using, like your web browser, and gets it into a standard, ready-to-travel format. That's why you'll sometimes hear it called the syntax layer. The best way to think about it is like this. It's a universal data translator. Imagine you've got two people trying to talk, but they speak totally different languages. The presentation layer is like that real-time interpreter in the middle. It's not just repeating words, it's making sure the actual meaning gets across by translating everything into a common language that both sides get. Okay, so that's the what, but how does it actually pull this off? Well, it all comes down to three main jobs, or functions. So we've got translation, compression, and encryption. Each one plays a super important role in making sure our data gets where it's going correctly, quickly, and securely. Let's take a look at each one. First, let's talk translation. A great example is character encoding. You know how your computer shows emojis or characters from different languages? That's often thanks to a standard like UTF-8. But what if you're sending a message to a system that uses a different format? Well, the presentation layer is what handles that conversion, making sure what you send is exactly what they see on the other side. Next up is compression. This one's all about speed. To make data transfer more efficient, this layer can actually shrink the size of the data. And that means, faster website loads, smoother video streaming, all the good stuff. It's all about saying the same thing, but using fewer bits and bytes to do it. And this comes in two main flavors. You've got lossless compression. Think of a zip file where no data is lost at all. You can get the original back 100%. Then there's lossy compression. This is what's used for things like JPEGs, where the system gets rid of a little bit of data you'd probably never notice anyway, just to make the file way, way smaller. And the third function is a huge one, especially today, encryption. So imagine you're about to send some sensitive info, like your credit card number. In its raw form, that's just readable text, right? We call that plain text. What the presentation layer does is take that plain text and just scramble it into something completely unreadable. We call this ciphertext. That way, if anyone's snooping on the connection and tries to grab your data, all they'll see is a bunch of random nonsense. And that process is what gives us confidentiality online. The data gets locked up on your end, and it can only be unlocked on the other end by someone who has the special key. It's pretty much the digital version of a sealed, tamper-proof envelope. Okay, so we've covered the theory. Now let's talk about the actual protocols that are doing all this hard work. You actually interact with these things every single day, probably without even thinking about it. You know that little padlock you see in your browser's address bar? That's TLS, or Transport Layer Security, handling all the encryption and decryption for you. When you're looking at images online, that's probably a JPEG, which is a format that handles compression. Even sending an email attachment, that's a protocol called MIME, making sure everything is formatted correctly. All right, this is where we have to hit pause for a second and do a little reality check. We've been talking a lot about the OSI model, right? But how does this all square with the internet we actually use? So on the left here, you see the 7-layer OSI model we've been walking through. It's a great way to think about networking. But on the right, you've got the TCP/IP model. This is what really powers the internet. And you might notice something's a little different. A couple of layers seem to be missing. And that's because the TCP/IP model is a bit more practical. It takes the jobs of the top 3 OSI layers, that's application, presentation, and session, and just combines them all into one big application layer. Yeah, this quote from a networking forum really hits the nail on the head. In the real world of TCP/IP, there isn't a separate, distinct presentation layer, but, and this is the important part, all those functions we talked about, translation, compression, encryption, oh yeah, they're still there. They're absolutely essential. They're just handled by the application itself. So, that leads to a pretty obvious question, right? If it doesn't really exist as its own layer, why are we even talking about it? Why bother learning this stuff?
Well, because understanding the concept of the presentation layer is critical. If you're a developer, it helps you build apps that work everywhere. If you're a network admin, it helps you hunt down weird data formatting problems. And if you're in cybersecurity, well, this is where a lot of the action happens.
And this really highlights why this matters. A lot of cyber attacks are aimed squarely at these presentation functions. For example, an attacker might try to force your browser to use an older, weaker form of encryption. That's a downgrade attack. Or they could embed malicious code inside a JTAG file, taking advantage of how that image data is formatted and presented. Knowing this stuff is the first line of defense. So to wrap it all up, the presentation layer is the OSI model's big data translator. It handles formatting, compression, and encryption. And even though in the real world it's all rolled into the application layer of the TCP/IP model, those jobs are more important now than they've ever been. If you found this helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to Techie for more. And I'll leave you with a question to think about. As our apps get smarter and start handling more of these networking tasks themselves, are those clean lines between the layers of the OSI model just blurring away for good? It's a pretty interesting thought. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thanks for watching.